at least go in and save that. We'll see. Okay, these are homes in Northfield. They're all mid-19th century buildings. And most buildings at that time, you will see, will have no front yards. If you were in Philadelphia, you would step right out onto the sidewalk on some of these places. This is the old list house. Again, depending upon, if you saw some of the ones in the early, well, this one, you see how plain the windows are here. This will tell you that this is an earlier building than this one. When you see the turrets and the mansard roofs and the hood molds and all of that other stuff that they put on, tells you it's a later 19th century building. Okay. This is one of my favorite things. I wrote the history of this in the Upper Ohio Valley Historical Review. This was, it's worth the trip to go see this. These two guys here, I mean, you can see their handkerchiefs in their pockets, their shoelaces. This was put up as a memorial to Augustus Pollock, who's buried out at Greenwood Cemetery. That cost about $10,000 when it was put up. If you were a laborer, you could donate to it. If you were a business owner, you couldn't. They wouldn't take the money. It took them 10 years. That today to replicate would probably be another $350,000 statue. It used to be at the city county building. And when they tore the oval down, they found a place for this. Bill, if I'm not mistaken, is there still an interest in moving this one down to the Heritage?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And and if it does move, am I going to speak?
Yeah.
Oh. Kenmore Place. Now, you two used to live across the street from this. This isn't Kenwood Place. This is Kenwood Place. This is Kenwood Place. This house and this house are the National Registry. This house has the two cutest grandkids. Little Davy and little Annie. They are, I mean, they are so cute. This is where our daughter and family live. Now, why did I show that to you? Because this is an example of a neighborhood that grows. Most of these houses were put up about 1900. Why? Because if you follow this road out to High School Avenue, and if you've ever been on that part of High School Avenue, you notice there's a little flat part. That's where the streetcar came along. Streetcar stops right there. You get off the streetcar and walk to your house. This is an example of a neighborhood that develops because of transportation. And it's isolated. On Halloween this last year, we had 380 Halloweeners. Okay? They had 10. Because you don't know how to get into it. It has this one little exit. These are homes over in the Woodsdale area. They also developed because of the streetcar. Okay. National Road. Early pictures. The streetcar tracks will run right down through here. This is the main thoroughfare. This is not very far from the cemetery. The park on your left over there. These roads have been busy through the 20th century. And this is where things will develop. That's why we put the cemetery out here. 1866. The first real burial is 1866. There will be other people who will be reinterred there. And if you've never been there, just looking at the Victorian part of that is just gorgeous. And we've shown you some of those. Okay. We've moved out. But in 1888, this is what you have in Woodsdale. This is now Sheets. Yeah. This is Route 88. Okay? Some of these homes are still here. This home, This is Woodsdale here. These are all the tree streets, pine, poplar, and so on. About 20 years ago, our son got a letter in the mail. Grant Javersak, one of the tree streets. Okay, anybody know whose house this is? Yes. Whose? Okay, Stuart Blocks, 1880s. If you could see this house when it was originally built, it's almost all fields. Almost all fields. In fact, we do have the picture of it someplace. Why is he moving out of here? Because he can. Okay? Because the streetcar runs the streetcar would come up, if you know what's called the pit path, and it would come right down Carmel, right past what's now the Yale Alpha, hang up, turn. Okay. What else is out there? I want to show you this picture because next year it may not be here. Here's an example of Wheelings Pass that's been 150 years old. The building, 1866, it's going to be gone, I think. You know where that is? See, here's, I think, what's unappreciated. The work that we did in putting in something as simple as a railroad bridge that crosses Wheeling Creek to take the B&O along it and now has a bicycle path. Okay. You got any more? Shepherd Mansion.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Now, I'm going to make available a reading list that'll be online. Sean's going to be taking care of that. And the other thing that I'm going to add to it is a list of all of these buildings and things that you ought to see. And Sean, I'll tell you what, every one that I put on here, absolutely every one, you put on here. So hopefully that gives you some idea. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
When I was young and went shopping in downtown Wheeling and passed the Baha'i Bakery, I think it was Baha'i Bakery, there were those beautiful wooden doors. What's behind them?
I don't know.
It looks like, someone told me once it was a carriage entrance.
The Baha'i's delivered, they actually had a stable in the basement. And when that building was torn down, when the Value City buildings were, there was a passageway that went downstairs. There were stables for the horses. And the Baha'i's lived on the second floor.
So when you went in those wooden doors,
There was a carriageway down to the first floor, and it turned into the basement, and they had stables for the horses. All that was torn down when they did the.
I always wondered what was behind those stuff.
Those doors are in a warehouse here at Wheelings.
There is something called the Sanborn Maps, Sanborn Insurance Company maps. You have some of them here. Those maps are color keyed to all the structures in Wheeling, and the colors indicate what the building was made of. So if it's brick, stone, where the outhouses were, where the stables were, where the gas lines were, where the streetcar lines were. One of the best sources for finding out about a community in its previous, in its older days, are these maps. And they're wonderful because they show you that the concentration of businesses, because it'll list all of the corporations, and they're done by the wards. And these maps can roll out. They're maybe half the size of this table, so that you can sit there and you don't really need a magnifying glass to find out all these things. But that would show up, as would where the tunnels are in Wheeling. You've got 4 tunnels in Wheeling. It's not just the one at Tunnel Green, but you have 2 through Mount Wood area, and there's one on 26th Street that comes out by the hospital. All that stuff is there. Those are great. Those are great sources. I want to thank all of you. This has been a wonderful experience for me, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And